Greetings and salutations, viewers. Chuke here from Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. I'm doing another important video on beast fights, and thank you for joining me. And I do want to, I've been getting a lot of comments lately, so I do want to point out that just because I'm sitting on a couch with an Afghan that my mother crocheted does not mean I live in my mother's basement and do YouTube videos as everyone seems to think. But anyways, another very important video. This time it is who would win. We got the matchup, the Bigfoot or Sasquatch versus the Kodiak Brown Bear. Now, there are a few caveats to this. We're not talking about a northern Californian Bigfoot, the peaceful Bigfoot, and we're not talking about a normal grizzly bear. We're talking about the biggest, freakishly big Kodiak Brown Bear. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you would have found out that the Alaskan videos, at least in some parts of South Central Alaska, the Bigfoot are very mean, and they've been known to kill people, and they're not the classic silent Bigfoot that will just run away and maybe scream or throw a rock once in a while. They're evil man killing Bigfoot of this area, which is, interestingly enough, close to the island of Kodiak, not on the island itself, but close to that area where the biggest brown bears live. Now, I'm not going to get into PSI of the mouth this time like I did with the silverback gorilla, and all you who thought that the silverback gorilla would win against a Kodiak brown bear, you guys are idiots. By the way, people are still arguing that video with me to this day, and it's annoying. But we are talking about a male aggressive Kodiak brown bear, not a grizzly because it's coastal, that is over 1,000 pounds, maybe even pushing 1,500 pounds, all right? We're talking about a brown bear that's 10, 11 foot, maybe even taller, over 1,000 pounds. We're talking about that versus a estimation of a Sasquatch, because we don't have one, that is 8 to 10 feet tall, maybe 11 foot tall, and roughly 800 pounds. So just off the bat, the grizzly bear, once again, has the size. He's got more weight than the Sasquatch. So those are the main caveats I wanted to talk about. Now let's just get into this. Obviously, there hasn't been a lot of documented fights between the brown bear and the Sasquatch. There have been a lot of interesting stories. The interesting stories I've heard from Alaska itself is sometimes someone will see a freaked out brown bear who's acting strangely, maybe running, and then they'll smell like something really nasty, and then they'll have a Sasquatch sighting. So obviously, in that case, the brown bear was scared of the Sasquatch, but I don't think it was the big 1,500-pound male Kodiak brown bear. There also have been some instances where a Sasquatch might have been moving quickly, and there were some bears in the area. Now, the most interesting article I have read on the subject, I think, was from Mysterious Universe. I believe that was the website, and it referenced several Russian stories where they talked about, and this makes a lot of sense to me, how brown bear and the Bigfoot share the same area, the same habitat, which is obvious. It's wooded, sometimes coastal areas, sometimes interior areas, very dense forests, very hard places to get at. I find it interesting that the major sightings and even where these man-killing Sasquatch live is the hardest area to get to. When I did a trip with my uncle, we went through the passage where the fjords are in between the outside of the Kenai Peninsula and Kodiak Island, and there's literally no place to land a boat. You could even land an airplane. You'd have to go on a lake or something. It is craggy rocks jutting straight out of the ocean. If you try to get a boat there, you're just going to smash your boat against the rock. I mean, you might be able to let somebody out. They'd have to climb the rock. You know, the forest just goes straight up from these rocks and cliffs. There's literally no one there. These places are extremely hard to get to, and that's where you find the Bigfoot sightings, and obviously there's bears there as well. Now let's just get into it. The stories from Russia were pretty interesting. People several times have said they've seen an area where all the brush was knocked down, some of the limbs were messed up, were really high. Two beasts had had a big fight. And then there was a Bigfoot sighting and a bear sighting. Some people also allegedly ran into a large brown bear. Now, these brown bears were on the Kamchatka Peninsula, kind of similar to Kodiak. Some of them are as big as Kodiak brown bears, but it's still typically a male will be, 500-600 pounds, sometimes more, except for the areas where they're really big. But there was a wounded bear. It had bites on its back and on its neck. It had fur pulled out of patches of its chest and area. It was bleeding, and it was acting all skittish. It had been in a fight with something, and then they saw allegedly a Bigfoot later who had been bitten in the leg and had also been wounded. But in this case, it looked like they were both very wounded, but the bear was going to die and it was shot by the hunters. So a very interesting story. Just from the way it was written, I tend to believe the story. So who do I think would be the winner? Now, obviously, like I said, in the silverback versus Kodiak brown bear, the brown bear would definitely win. I think that it's going to be a little stacked against the brown bear this time. I'm going to say it's almost 50-50. I'm almost going to give it to the Sasquatch. Now, it's got to be a one-on-one fight because bears are solitary creatures. Sasquatches are solitary at times, but the bear, except for some cases where adults kind of never leave the sow, after that first 2 years, they kind of stay with the sow. Sometimes you'll see groups of bears. Also on salmon streams, you'll see bears kind of gathered because of the food. Whereas Sasquatches are more in groups because it's an ape-like hominid, and they hang out more in groups. Now, as I said before, they're going to share the same food. Sasquatch have been known to chase deer, especially in the wooded areas, but I think they're more of a herbivore, just like an ape, where they eat plants and stuff. But obviously in these northern climates, you're not going to find as many plants, so I think the Sasquatch are eating meat. They're sharing the same habitat as the brown bear, and like in Russia, I think sometimes they butt heads. I'm going to have to say maybe 51% I'll give to the Sasquatch winning the fight. It's not as big, but it's got very strong arms. It's going to be able to rip out fur. If it surprises the bear one-on-one, it could get on its back and bite it. But it's not going to do the damage. It doesn't have giant razors on its hand like the bear. The bear's got maybe not as much strength in its arms, but as far as torso and full body strength, a big 1,500-pound Kodiak brown bear is going to have a little more strength, I think, than the Sasquatch as far as flipping around. And its jaw strength is going to be more, and if it's going to get some swipes with those daggers and claws, they're going to hurt each other. But obviously the Sasquatch is going to have some more intelligence, and I think it's going to be able to use rocks and logs and weapons, whereas a bear does not. So I am going to have to give it to the Sasquatch. But I think in some cases they will wound each other, maybe both die eventually. It's going to be very close. Now, I've said it before, not all bears are temperamented the same. You've seen the stories and the videos of a dog chasing off a bear. Now, I'm talking about a mean male Kodiak brown bear, over 1,000 pounds, king of the forest, king of the mountain. I think it's possible for that bear to kill a large alpha Sasquatch, if you will. I don't think that that's improbable. However, I'm still saying 51% of the time the Sasquatch will win because of the intelligence, and obviously it's a lot bigger than a silverback gorilla. It's going to be able to do a lot of damage, ripping and tearing and grabbing with those big arms. So I'm going to have to slightly give it to the Sasquatch. This is the first time I've ever said that the Kodiak Brown Bear would lose, but we're talking about a big male alpha Sasquatch, and not all the time. I get a lot of questions about the trans-dimensional Sasquatch. And yes, we headed to the Bay in Homer, Alaska, a lot of UFO sightings, a lot of paranormal stuff ever since the 60s and 70s, 80s. And sometimes you do have UFOs landing in, and then a Sasquatch encounter. A lot of the Native American stories up here, I'm Alaska Native. I'm not going to get into specifics. Sometimes we don't talk about other tribes, but there is that connection, especially in Southeast. I don't know much about that, but they have a strong connection with the Sasquatch down there. So someone might say, oh, Chuke, you're an idiot. The Sasquatch has, this supernatural power that the bear does not, but actually you're the idiot, because the bears have their own supernatural power and need to be respected too. They're highly respected in Native American culture as well. So both would have that sort of trans-dimensional power, as it would be, but the Sasquatches would be a little elevated over the bear, because obviously they haven't been found and there's something weird about that, and they may be able to shift back and forth between dimensions. So I'm going to have to give it to the Sasquatch. This is a first for me. I said that the bear would kill the tiger. I said the bear would kill the silverback gorilla. But in this case, I'm going to have to say the Sasquatch would win. One of the things that makes me think that is the incredible strength, as proven by Prince of Wales Island and some places even around here in the Matsu Valley, where they found giant trees ripped upside down and shoved into the ground with the roots up. Scientists said it was windstorms, but everyone knows the ancient and modern legends that it was Sasquatch showing their strength and marking their territory. So, bears, we see their scratch marks on the trees from their claws, which they mark their territory. And who knows, maybe the Sasquatch is telling the bears, hey, this is my territory now. Because just like in Russia, we had them clash because the Sasquatch started moving into bear territory. So just that shows their incredible strength. Maybe there's some Sasquatches bigger than 10, 11 feet, and they're the ones that are ripping trees out and shoving them in the ground. So I'm going to have to give it to the Sasquatch. So let the arguments begin. What do you guys think, bear or Sasquatch? Please like and subscribe. Please help me out on Patreon so I can get out of my mom's basement here. Okay, thanks guys. It's Chuke, your friend in the field.